Yeah? Okay. Guys, one of my reporters has just gotten what appears to be a very early sketch from Phoebe Philo's upcoming brand. We're gonna pull it up on the screen right now. Go ahead. I mean, stunning. Obviously, super early sketch, but immediately you can tell, look at the clean lines. Look at the attention to the woman, the buyer, and I think I see pockets on this garment. That is incredible. Phoebe clearly knows her consumer. This is an awesome example of what we can expect from this upcoming brand. Friends, welcome back to the Brave New Wear show. My name's Christian. Phoebe Philo is arguably one of the most celebrated designers of our time. During her tenure at Celine, she played a huge role in shaping what women's wear would be today. And one of the biggest impacts she made was kind of channeling this aesthetic that a lot of people have called cerebral chic. In essence, what that meant was she was making clothing that spoke to a modern, sophisticated woman. They weren't garments that were gaudy or very frilly or frivolous. They were garments that would work for a woman who was a professional, who was an intellectual, who was modern and busy and wanted clothing that kind of reflected their creativity and their drive and their passion. And they found that in Celine, and it felt like nobody else was speaking to them. So when Phoebe Philo left Celine 3 years ago, her absence has been felt very prominently. And there are other brands that have kind of filled in the gaps, which I'm making a video about, so you better subscribe and stay tuned if you want to see it. But Phoebe Philo has definitely been missed. However, Women's Wear Daily recently reported that they have rumors, they have news that Phoebe Philo is currently working on her own brand. I don't know if it's gonna be a namesake brand, we don't know what it's gonna be titled, and right now there's very little information about it, but everybody is certainly excited to find out what Phoebe Philo might be doing with this new brand, because we're all waiting to see if she's coming back to fashion. So today I'm going to speculate on the very little information that we have other than that awesome sketch that we pulled, but to try to kind of put together what I imagine, if these rumors are true, what this Phoebe Philo brand might look like. We only have a little bit of information, but what Women's Wear Daily was able to pull was essentially this. She's working to create a brand that focuses on essentials, quote unquote, and it will be eco-friendly, or it will be ecologically focused, and it will use kind of more modern production, more modern means of producing garments. So with that little shred of information, we can kind of try to speculate or expand on what that might look like, knowing who Phoebe Philo is and knowing her designs. So the first one I want to start with is the idea of essentials. And if you spend some time Googling trying to figure out what Phoebe Philo's style is or how she's been remembered, a lot of people call her like a minimalist. And I guess I can kind of understand that. If you look back at some of the like advertising and marketing for Celine, a lot of it was typically very simple. Even like the Joan Didion ad campaign or whatever, it's always just kind of a shot, a woman, kind of sometimes that collage-y thing. And the garments themselves, when I think back to the garments, they're not pieces that are lavishly embroidered or like there's not like logomania. It doesn't seem extremely loud, and so I understand where that kind of play of minimalism comes in. People kind of think back and think, oh, she was a minimalist, but that word gets thrown around a lot, and I think for one, it's kind of like the thing where she did very frequently use a lot of patterns and use a lot of colors. Think about Kanye's famous performance during, Coachella, where he wore the Celine blouse. That piece was very colorful and very patterned. I wouldn't call that minimal at all. But I think the reason that people say minimalist about Celine is because they are all individual pieces that could work very easily into a modern woman's wardrobe. They're not pieces that are necessarily typically like statement. They're not like really abstract or like strange in their coloring or patterns or all those things. They all kind of feel simple in the way that they're very easy to be incorporated into the wardrobe. And so that's why I think kind of people conflate that idea where they say she was a minimalist. So when we have this news that she's working on a brand that could very well be essentials, I think it's gonna kind of look a lot like what she was doing at Celine. Perhaps it's not going to be driven by like seasons, like it's not gonna be like fall, spring, resort, etc. Maybe it's going to be more of like capsule collections, maybe it's gonna be more like one collection a year, but I think it's gonna be kind of similar, where you see single garments that have really clearly distinct places in a wardrobe, and they seem to fit kind of like a niche. And so maybe people continue to think like, oh, that's minimal. Which, I get it. I just think that when we're talking about minimalism, at least if we're like comparing it to the ideas of like what minimalism was in the 70s in art, I don't think Celine's or Phoebe Philo's clothing for Celine was necessarily like minimal all the time, as much as it was clean, you know? So when we get this news that the brand is going to be kind of essentials, I think that's playing into Phoebe Philo's understanding and appreciation for her consumer. That has always been her strong suit, and it's really interesting to see we associate Phoebe Philo with kind of being, you know, the singular genius, the woman who was able to exact her vision of a brand and bring it to life and all those things. But that's not true, but something that's really telling and interesting is that the way she did it was really by kind of seeing her consumer, by seeing the woman who wore the clothing and really kind of creating things for them. So her kind of exacting vision wasn't in any way selfish, at least that's not how I think a lot of people considered it. It was actually really thoughtful about the people who would be buying and wearing it. So the idea of making an essentials line makes a lot of sense. She makes clothes that are worn by real women, quote unquote. And I think that essentials line is kind of like saying, maybe stripping away some of the pretense or kind of some of the obligations that like a high fashion line demands, and more or less maybe cutting more to the chase about, I'm going to create garments that fill specific needs in this modern woman's wardrobe, or men. We don't know yet. The second kind of element that we have to pull from is that there are rumors that it's going to be kind of ecologically or kind of more sustainably focused. I think that is an inevitability, and I think that's a good move for her. Phoebe Philo, when she was starting her career, she was working as the design assistant to Stella McCartney at Chloe. Stella McCartney left Chloe to start her own brand, and then Phoebe Philo became the creative director of Chloe in her place. But Phoebe Philo and Stella McCartney have always had this relationship, and obviously I think that if you look at Stella McCartney's brand, I think that the biggest thing that they did, and Stella McCartney's kind of brilliant for this, is that she understood that sustainability or being responsible in how you produce garments wasn't like a gimmick or wasn't like a trend, but was in essence going to be the future of all brands. She saw that kind of earlier than everyone else, and creating garments that are well made and sustainably made didn't have to sacrifice the quality or the beauty, which is, I think, Stella McCartney's greatest achievement, quote unquote. So I could totally see Phoebe Philo kind of sharing that sentimentality and that desire with her own brand. I imagine there's going to be something very similar. Because in reality, sustainability is something that every brand that wants to thrive has to account for. Nobody can make clothes and win over a consumer base if they're just like burning the rainforest. At least I think it's going to become less and less possible because creating clothes can be so wasteful everybody needs to think about how they're making their garments and how to make them more sustainable. So if Phoebe Philo is making a new brand and she wants it to be for an intellectual or an intelligent woman, kind of like how Celine was, the intelligent woman doesn't necessarily want to buy something that was made under poor conditions and in a wasteful manner. So they're going to want to buy something that was made in a way that can be reproduced. What does more sustainability look like? I think it's obviously gonna mean using the materials that are more easily produced without wasting more water or energy. Like you could imagine that maybe she'd be using things like tencel or lyocell that come from wood pulp instead of materials like cotton that require a lot of water and land to grow. And maybe in a similar way, like Stella McCartney, who doesn't use leather, maybe Phoebe Philo's new brand might also avoid using any leather or fur, obviously. The last part, kind of my speculation, one of the things that Phoebe Philo's Celine was so great at was making it bags, whether it was like the micro luggage or the trio. And I imagine even if this collection, this new brand is more about essentials and is more kind of really consumer focused, I can't imagine Phoebe Philo is going to steer away from making those really desirable accessories. And I imagine in a similar way, they're going to be they'll feel kind of like modern classics in a lot of way that Celine, the Phoebe Philo Celine looked like, and they're going to feel very practical. But only time will tell. You know, it's like this type of thing is only a speculation, but it would be crazy if somebody like Phoebe Philo, somebody so revered, somebody so capable as a designer, would totally step away from fashion and do nothing else. I think what makes Phoebe Philo so remarkable is that what she does is almost like a service to the people who buy her clothes. Her brand, or the places that she's worked at, haven't felt so focused on like her vision or her creativity as much as it's felt focused on creating clothing that really met a need that was unfilled. And there's something super like noble and awesome about that. And I guess it goes to show that the greatest artists, designers ever are the ones who see that need and actually do something that helps other people, because that's what matters the most. In the same way my videos help you. Obviously, that's why you're watching. I am as selfless as Phoebe Philo. So if you like the video, please subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you think Phoebe Philo's next secret brand might look like, if it's even gonna come out, if these rumors are true. You know, follow me on Instagram and keep tuned in. This video came out on a Wednesday. I pray to God today is Wednesday. So subscribe, because I'm gonna continue to try to release videos every Wednesday and Sunday. And I'll catch you guys on the flip side.